That's what Oklahoma City needs to do.
Westbrook
Damian
has
Lillard
to
and
be
Westbrook.
separated, yeah. A reason why people boo Russell Westbrook when he comes to
Under the rims, maybe.
Good talking going on.
What if Russell Westbrook and Damian Lillard switched teams? Okay, now I know you all saw this title and are probably shocked this is even a video considering how unlikely it is, but just hear me out here. This trade definitely isn't happening this season, but we can't rule out that it will never happen, right? Plus, it's fun to look into what could be if just one or two moves ended up happening, just like the Chris Paul trade that was vetoed all those years ago. So, in today's video, we're going to talk about the benefits and problems a trade between these two guys would cause for their respective teams, starting off with going over to the Los Angeles Lakers side of things. Make sure you stick around until the end of the video to find out our thoughts on the Trailblazers season if they were actually to pull the trigger on a deal like this. The Lakers were bounced early from the playoffs last season by the Phoenix Suns in the first round. It was a depressing loss, but one that was needed for a team that won the championship just 1 year prior. They got some much-needed rest, along with some extra time to seek out a new star who they could add onto their roster via trade. Names like Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook, and DeMar DeRozan were all explored during that time. Lillard happened to not only be the best fit, but the most likely at one point. The Portland Trailblazers were eliminated from playoff contention early yet again, losing in 6 to the Denver Nuggets. He was growing frustrated with the team's lack of change on their constructed roster and was pushing for them to make a big move. He's already locked into a massive contract, so free agency isn't really an option anytime soon, so the Lakers could have swooped in and stolen him from the Blazers right when this was all happening. Granted, they would have had to give up quite a lot if they were to land the superstar. Talen Horton-Tucker and a first-round pick would have been the Blazers' demands straight away, along with Russ. There also would have been smaller pieces thrown in to even the deal up and get it all finalized, like maybe a second-round pick too. Though that all sounds too unrealistic for Portland given their needs defensively. I would think that the final offer would have to include Horton-Tucker, Westbrook, and at least one first-round pick for them to consider. Lillard would then form an unbelievable trio with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Lillard has shown time and time again that his three-point shooting and scoring ability is simply unmatched at the point guard position. There are only 2 or 3 other dudes in this league who are as talented offensively as Dame is. And that's not even mentioning his clutch gene, something that's helped him knock home countless game-winning shots, including that historic one against the Oklahoma City Thunder a couple years ago. Now, defensively, he isn't the best, but with an elite coaching staff and some great defensive pieces around him, that really shouldn't matter. He would obviously be thrown right into the Lakers starting lineup alongside James, Davis, Malik Monk, and possibly Wayne Ellington. The starting lineup isn't that important, but what is important is that trio. James admittedly had a below-average season to his insane standards in 2021, but he's getting older. This season, he could put up almost identical numbers, but with Lillard next to him, he wouldn't have to worry about being the primary ball handler every single time he touched the floor. That off-ball style could help him become more aggressive and drive into the scoring lanes a little more often than he has lately. Seriously, how could defenses stop an aggressive James, a stellar scoring threat in Lillard, and then don't forget you still have to worry about Anthony Davis on the back end? Davis would just be the glue that keeps this entire team together the whole year. He would be the team's rim protector, and he'd be a fantastic lob threat for both James and Lillard. If for some reason neither of those players can get themselves going early, you can expect Davis to start backing down in the paint and getting some good ISO looks himself. This Lakers team would just be too good, even better than the Brooklyn Nets roster of Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, but maybe not by that much. If this trade were to happen, I don't see any team out in the Western Conference that would have been able to stop this team in the playoffs. Los Angeles would have cruised through teams like the Denver Nuggets, the Phoenix Suns, and the Los Angeles Clippers on their way to an easy NBA Finals appearance. And there, they'd be playing against either the Milwaukee Bucks or the Brooklyn Nets probably. I think they'd probably beat the Bucks in about 6 games and maybe take them 7 to beat the Nets. Stick around until the end of the video to find out what would happen to the Blazers if Westbrook was sent over there. It's really pretty crazy if you think about it, so make sure you stick around. Alright, so basically, just to round this whole section up, if the Lakers were to trade Westbrook and a few other pieces to the Portland Trailblazers for Dame Lillard, I think the Lakers would wind up winning the NBA championship for the second time in 3 years and cruise their way through the postseason. Oh, and one more thing, we'd also get to see Carmelo Anthony win his first ever NBA championship. That's something that fans have been waiting on for years now, but we haven't been able to witness it just yet. So, with all that in mind, let's look at how the Trailblazers would fare after this trade. Portland would end up with Westbrook, Horton Tucker, and a first-round pick at least, so let's work with that. The Trailblazers roster is pretty poorly constructed as it is, and this trade really wouldn't help them out too much. The starting lineup for this season would be Westbrook running the point, CJ McCollum over at the 2, Robert Covington at the wing, possibly Larry Nance at the 4, and Yusuf Nurkic as the big man. This lineup is pretty subjective though and could easily change, like if the team opted to roll with Norman Powell at the 3 spot with Covington over in the 4 and Nance coming off the bench. There's a lot of options in that area, but I guess that's kind of beside the point. Anyway, Westbrook would work nicely with McCollum as their playstyles couldn't be more different. Russ loves to attack the basket and fight through contact, while CJ prefers to put the moves on defenders before pulling up for rhythm mid-range jump shots. He's also a high percentage 3-point shooter, which Russ definitely isn't, giving them even more spacing. Defensively, Russ would probably bring a lot more energy just because that's the way he plays, but I don't think their team would improve all that much from last season. Talen Horton-Tucker would be a solid add on defense, but may not be seeing a ton of minutes due to their crowded amount of offensive firepower. Luckily, Nurkic would be the rim protector, and even though he's not the best in the league, he's more than capable of taking over that job. Off the bench would be a very nice group of guys. We could see Nance or Powell, like we talked about earlier, and then there's Dennis Smith Jr., he could see the floor. Anthony Simons has improved every season, and the same goes for Nasir Little. We should also talk about Cody Zeller, who would definitely be seeing the floor after he was essentially the only free agent that the team really wanted to go out and grab this offseason. Let's be real here though, if Lillard was still on this roster, they really wouldn't be going much further. The roster is just full of mediocre to above average talent, and neither Westbrook or Lillard are talented enough to carry a team over other competitors with better chemistry and loaded rosters like the Lakers, Nets, Clippers, Bucks, and Suns. I think with this lineup in hand, they definitely make the playoffs, but not as high of a seed due to their defensive issues and horrible injury history. This Portland group would wind up finishing as probably the 7th seed in the conference and sneak in by winning the play-in tournament games. They would line up with either the Los Angeles Clippers or the Phoenix Suns because, of course, the Lakers would hold that number 1 spot. Either team would give the Trailblazers problems, though. The Clippers, with a healthy Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, would probably destroy a wing tandem of Powell and Covington, and the Suns' backcourt would give Russ and McCollum a run for their money with their incredible team chemistry and coaching. So, in my opinion, this team loses in 5 or 6 games to either of those teams. Assuming that by some miracle they make it past the first round, then of course you're going to get smacked around by the Lakers if they cross paths with them, and we all saw what the Nuggets did to them without Jamal Murray healthy. They would have to watch an absolute pain as the Lakers, with their former superstar point guard, walk their way into the postseason and win the championship right in front of their eyes. Looking forward beyond this one season, this move would definitely shake up the future of the league. Maybe if Lillard winds up with the Lakers, then other teams would get more aggressive to form new super teams. So here's another potential scenario if this trade did happen to go down. We could see the Nets trade for Bradley Beal to counter the Lakers' addition of Lillard. Now imagine how crazy the NBA Finals would be that year, with Beal, Irving, Durant, Blake Griffin, and Harden going up against Lillard, Davis, James, and Carmelo Anthony. The ratings alone would go through the roof. Fans all over the world would want to fly out there and catch the game however they can, and of course ticket prices would be unbelievable given the amount of star power on the court in front of them. I've never really been a fan of super teams myself, but I can't help imagine how competitive these two teams would be if they were able to load their teams even more. Again, I just feel bad for the Blazers. If they traded their superstar player away for a year or two of Russell Westbrook and then finished with the same record as the year before, it would definitely feel like a waste. But hey, the first round pick could end up being the next LeBron, so I guess you never know, right? Talen Horton-Tucker has also flashed potential to seriously become a top player in the league if he continues to work and improve with what he's got around him. Towards the end of last year, he was kind of starting to come out of his shell and attack the rim more while playing more aggressively on defense. Honestly, with that Russ-Dame trade, Horton Tucker could end up being the better get for the Blazers than Russ. That's not the point of this video though. The point was kind of demonstrate what would happen if they flipped teams, and I believe that the Lakers would be the clear-cut winners of this trade. So really, unless Portland was able to finesse another big rotation player from LA, or maybe get multiple first-round picks, this deal wouldn't even be worth considering. But with that, we officially wrap up today's video on what would happen if Russell Westbrook was traded for Damian Lillard. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe because it really does help our channel out a lot. Also, remember to hit the bell icon so that you're always notified when we upload. We've got a lot of insane stuff planned for the future that you won't want to miss out on, so make sure to stay tuned.